Hi, it's Sav and Jess. Welcome to And a Diet Soda, an opportunity for people to celebrate their successes, share their failures, and hopefully give a little advice on all things relatable along the way.
This community is for appreciating the little things and fostering positive mindsets and intuitive thoughts by talking to people, because chances are they've been through it too.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here today. I'm Sav.
And I'm Jess, and welcome to And a Diet Soda, episode 30, Guilt-Free Holidays, and also the end of season 1. It's been a wild ride, so thank you guys. The holidays are coming up. Personally, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. Tons of good food. My whole family gets together. It's like this big deal in the Letterman household. The leaves and the weather are so beautiful back home. I'm from Connecticut, and so it's just gorgeous, all the beautiful colors and the gorgeous fall weather. And I also make sure to wear my stretchiest pair of pants so that I can eat all the food I want to and not have any issues. I think last year I went with a jumpsuit and it worked really well. But for many of us, the holidays and everything that comes with that, like family planning, scheduling, can be a time of absolute stress. So today we're going to talk about handling that stress, trying to enjoy yourself and all that delicious food over the next few months.
Yeah, so today we have the pleasure of welcoming back Kylee Fetzner back to the podcast. As many of you probably remember, we had Kylee back on the show in June. And if you guys haven't checked out that episode yet, you absolutely need to hear that. Go listen to that first and then come back to this episode. Kylie's a registered dietitian specializing in eating disorders and disordered eating, such as binge eating. Kylee dedicates her life to working with people to make them feel confident, secure, and in control around food and their habits, which is the most fitting discussion as we approach the holidays. So Kylee, thank you for being here and joining us again today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be back, and that was an awesome introduction. So thank you. That made me feel so good. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad we think so highly of you. We're just stoked to have this conversation overall. So
yeah, this is an episode we've been looking forward to for a while. For everyone listening, this has literally been in the works for like months. We're like, we need to get Kylee back on here. And so we're hoping that today flows more like a conversation instead of the interview form like our other podcasts. And just really hoping to get Kylie's expert opinion on here and help you guys out around the holidays. So we're just going to get right into it. I want to open up the conversation by just asking how people can make intuitive choices around the holidays.
Okay, so how people can start making intuitive choices around the holidays. Like when I think of this, I think of intuitive eating a little bit more. So like in my mind, I think of, not dieting, so more so trying to get back in touch with those internal signals, so trying to get back in touch with you and what these things feel like rather than focusing on a certain diet or certain calories. And honestly, this is an extra tip is like, with Thanksgiving, especially like being around so much food, is kind of, taking a little bit of each thing and then going from there and being like, okay, what tastes the best? What feels right for me? What do I want more of? Instead of feeling so overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, am I going to make the wrong choice during this time? Instead, like, take a little bit of each thing so that you can feel happy with whatever you do decide on and go from there, instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, if I take so much of this, like, is that going to be all I'm going to be able to have? I don't know how you guys think on this type of topic, but I feel like that helps with not feeling so overwhelmed.
yeah, I agree. And we'll talk a little bit more later about just how we can do this like every day of the year, but especially during the holidays. I have some clients right now who are already starting to think about it. Like November 1st hit and it was like Thanksgiving, Christmas. And so it's just such a practice and like a mental practice every single day to like prep yourself. So I want to hear what you do. And also Jess is like somebody who's not like in the like nutrition field specifically and what you do. But for me personally and my experience with disordered eating, it took me seriously years to like learn how to talk to myself through it. So I think we should definitely share some of our own like mental exercises that we've gone through with that. So for me personally, I literally had to start looking at food every day. I had to stop tracking everything. Like I was tracking consistently. And it probably has only been a couple of years around the holidays that I've been okay to like eat food and not think about it. My family used to hate holidays with me because I used to make like a gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, like pumpkin pie. And they're like, that's disgusting. That's a can of pumpkin on cardboard. So it's taken some time. What about you, Jess?
I personally, Kylie's videos have really helped, like since we met you and since we were introduced to you. My favorite, what you always go back to with your TikToks, is if you binge ate yesterday, you deserve to eat today. And it's like such a simple concept, but I think more people need to hear it. And I think that like especially applies during Thanksgiving because of the copious amounts of food that is on that dinner table. Personally, my kryptonite is this thing called corn souffle that my grandma makes. She actually started to make 2 of them because me and my cousin like love it so freaking much that she wanted to make sure there was enough. So she'd make it like one for the first night and one for Friday night, the second night. And I would just like sit there and eat all of it. And so I think just like, for me, it's not so much the take little things and go from there. It's the being okay with knowing that eating this feels really good right now, and it shouldn't make me feel bad later tonight or tomorrow.
I also think about now around the holidays when like I have all this good food around me. I just think like eat whatever you want until you're full, because I would eat like the really healthy things and then dessert would come out and I would just go crazy. And so I'm like, eat a little bit of whatever looks good, put it on your plate, eat food until you're full. Like eat until you feel completely satisfied. That's like what I'm consistently telling myself throughout it. Like because of how I struggled with food and disordered thoughts in general, I'm just like, it's okay. Like put whatever you want on that plate, eat it until you're full. You also don't have to like, just because you start binging. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've seen this with your clients, but for me, it's like when I would get into that mindset and I would start binge eating something, it's like, why not just keep going? Like, I remember thinking that to myself multiple times. Like, why not? Like, I'm already here. Like, why not just keep going?
Mm-hmm. Oh, 1,000,000%. Like, it's just like that all or nothing mentality. Like, I already started, so why would I not stop? Like, let's just keep going. But also, it's the concept too with especially Thanksgiving, if people celebrate this, is like the fact that it's like almost expected for everyone to at least like overeat, like feel so uncomfortable, like that everyone is just like doesn't want to do anything after. Like everyone's expected to like eat past this uncomfortable fullness, and that can be so tough when you are trying to like get back in touch with, you know, your internal cues and stopping when you feel more content versus like super uncomfortable. And I think it is like, you know, giving yourself that permission, because usually there is leftovers for most of the time, like depending on where you go and things like that. So like you still have the option to eat those tomorrow if you want. But I think most people say, I'm not allowed to eat this after today, so I have to eat as much as I can right now. And that's the tricky part. Like if you tell yourself that, you're gonna possibly have a binge today, but give yourself that permission to have more tomorrow or whenever. And it helps like not feel this urgency to eat it right now.
I was going to say, could you talk a little bit about just hunger cues in general? Because I've heard from a lot of people that they don't even really know, like they feel like they can't recognize their hunger cues in general. So how do you even start to recognize those again? Like when you've kind of just been in this cycle for so long, how do you start recognizing that hunger cue and listening to that again?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I got this from like the intuitive eating. So they have a tool within the workbook, but the first thing is to get your hunger cues back is really to like start eating regularly. Because if you're not, like your body's never going to start signaling those to you for you to be aware. And the other thing is for a lot of people, it can show up differently. So most of the time it's in the stomach, but for some people it can be like mood changes, headaches, you know, not being able to concentrate. So there was like a tool where you can just start getting back in touch with how things feel in your body. So it's like a pulse technique. So it's like you take, you know, how does it feel to feel my pulse for 60 seconds? And you're physically touching your pulse. And then for the next round, you're going to try to do it without actually physically touching your pulse. So you're going to try to just see if I can feel that without doing it. It's just getting back in touch with your body. So it's not exactly with like hunger, but it's for you to build this connection with how things physically feel. But the first thing is really making sure you are eating regularly, like not skipping meals or, going long times without eating pretty much.
Yeah, that's something that I've had to work on recently too, and I think I've been doing a pretty good job. But the problem is like work schedules, and sometimes I wake up super late and I don't get to have that breakfast. So I've been trying to do like bananas on the go or something. But what it sounds like to me is that we're like training for Thanksgiving here. We're like a bunch of athletes. We're like getting our bodies ready, like getting on that eating schedule so that we could feel ready to eat at Thanksgiving, and I love it.
That's so true. That's so funny, actually.
Yes, I love though, like this whole thing started literally with Jess sending me a text about Sonic. This whole podcast started. And she's just like, I mean, we've both learned so much, but I've just like, when I go to her house, I like see you like doing things. I'm just like, all that we've learned has been just awesome. Like, I'm just feel like we've learned so much throughout this whole journey and a lot from you, Kylee. So we totally appreciate that. A question that I have is, we obviously like ban diets here, but for people who may be on a specific diet, maybe for something like metabolic wise or from their physician or dietitian, whatever that may be, what advice would you give to somebody during the holidays who is on that specific diet? I know that you often speak to like visualizing how you want things to go in these situations and maybe like creating an action plan. So can you just expand a little bit on that? Because I'm super interested to learn.
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like the first thing is to like try to move away from this perfection mindset with like, diets are like have a set plan on like, okay, do this way. And then we kind of get in our own heads of like, okay, if I don't follow this perfectly, then what does this mean about myself? That I can't follow things, that I'm a failure? Like we kind of like make ourselves believe that this negative belief about ourselves. And it doesn't have to be like that. I feel like that causes us so much guilt and shame, and we just spiral from that point. So like, especially on Thanksgiving, like there's so many different foods that you're going to be around. Like you cannot beat yourself up for having something that, is not available year round. So, allow yourself to enjoy it and be like mindful for the most part if you can. And like, yeah, like the visualization, like you can kind of go into it, like, how do I want this to go? For me to feel successful, like, should I allow myself to have certain options? Like, think about what do I really, really love, like on Thanksgiving? And I want to allow myself to have this instead of beating myself up and saying, you're not allowed to have this or this or this, because that's going to make you want it even more. And then you're going to get really upset with yourself if you end up having it. And then it's like just a guilt spiral. So, go in there, give yourself permission to have some options, like, depending on what this diet looks like for you, giving yourself some like lee room to enjoy the holidays as well.
Totally. And just looking at food is like looking at food for what it is. Food is literally energies. Like when I work at when I'm working with people, I'm like, we always talk about calories, right? But do people know what calories literally is? And it's just a unit of energy. It's measuring energy. So when we're food, like fueling our bodies with food, that's what we're doing. So guess what? Turkey is protein and the bread you're having is carbs. And that is how our body gets energy, is from carbs. And it's okay to have the butter on that, whatever your mashed potatoes and whatnot, like you're getting the nutrients that your body needs. So maybe even just shifting to that might be helpful for somebody to like recognize that you're getting all your nutrients, your macronutrients that you need. And I loved when we were talking on our intro call, you said, or I think it was you, Jess, that said, it's literally like 2 days out of the entire holiday season, out of the year. You were like, it's literally Thanksgiving, Christmas, maybe like, 1 or 2 other meals if you have other friends and family. But I think that's really helpful for people to understand too. When you said that, I was like, heck yeah, like it's so much better to like, you don't have to fear the whole season because there's going to be more cookies around or something, it's literally those couple of days out of the year.
Definitely. I like that you brought it back to the basics too. Like it's just a calorie, that's energy. Like this food is energy. Instead of making it, super complex and like scary. I like how you put it like that. But yeah, it is just 2 days and we make it so overwhelming and we freak ourselves out because it's everywhere. Like it's displayed everywhere. So that makes it super scary.
So what about, because we put so much pressure on ourselves, of course, but what about all the pressure from everyone else. I mean, everyone has the one person in their family, whoever it is, who kind of gives them the side eye and they're like, 2 scoops, really? 2 scoops. And so how do you like feel confident in yourself and kind of go back and be like, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I feel like I need right now. So thank you. Like, what does that look like?
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, dude, I feel like
Just abuse.
it kind of is, honestly. I feel like that's how a lot of my problems started, was just like my family personally, they've always been like pretty health focused. Everyone's on the newest diet or doing the newest exercise and workouts, you know, and so I feel like, I mean, we talked a lot about orthorexia in our first episode. And I think for me, I was just like so obsessed with being healthy. And I think that I even started to do that to my family members, when like that's just the mindset of everyone that you're around. It's like, how do you start to change that mindset within the entire group? You know, I mean, my uncles and I used to literally go run like 4 miles before we even were like allowed to eat. So I get it. I don't even know. I'm still struggling through it. At this point, I like blinders on. But there are some people who struggle to like not allow those comments to really affect them. They're like, grandma, you made this. I'm going to eat all of it.
Yeah, right.
No, but what I really just try to do is, honestly, and if you're able to be more direct, for me, I had to get to the point where I'm like, yeah, I'm this is what I want right now, and I'm okay, and I fully am aware of what I feed myself on a daily basis, and that's okay for me. But Kylee, you've worked specifically with people who really do struggle in these areas. How do you coach people to begin from the beginning when they have really difficult family situations like that?
Oh my gosh, it's so triggering. Like, even me hearing comments of like in the background, I can hear these things and I'm like, no, like I get so upset because I'm like, you never know, again, like what people are going through. But it is a common discussion. You know, it really does come up, talking about diet, talking about body, talking about what people are eating, their food choices. And again, it's like realizing that when people make those types of comments, like it's something kind of going on with them as well. Like, why are they so aware of like what someone else is doing or what they look and feel called to kind of comment on these things, and really just like separate yourself from them? Even though this is like so hard, it's like coming to the realization that, okay, like something is going on with them, and all I can really do is like, you know, how I react to this situation. Like I can, you know, do this differently instead of like, you know, feeling like, oh, because they said this, now I have to eat less or I have to change my decisions. Like, you are the only one that knows your body, you know, what you really like to eat, how much food that you really want in this moment, even though that's tough if you don't notice your hunger fullness signals, but that's a different topic. But you know, like really honoring yourself and being confident with like, you know what, like this is what I want today. Like, you don't have to live in my shoes, so why does it really matter like what I'm doing? But it's tricky. It's really, you know, separating yourself from them, and again, preparing, like definitely preparing before going to these events. If you know people talking about these things, like how can you set yourself up for success? Is that setting boundaries, changing the topic? Is it excusing yourself and leaving for a little bit to like get your head back on track? Those are probably the main things.
Yeah, it's really just about mindset and mindfulness and being able to be in tune with yourself. You were talking about the 5 senses. I'd love if you shared that, but I also wanted to share just mindful breathing exercise that I literally do, is literally to focus if you're able to step away or something really has triggered you to the point where your autonomic nervous system is having a response, you're sweating, your heart is racing, and to step away, to literally just close your eyes and take deep breaths in and out and focus on the exact moment that you're in right now, knowing that you're okay, knowing that you're going to get through it. And also it's coming into the moment by literally just saying like, okay, what does the air feel like coming in through my nose? What does it feel like exiting my mouth? Focusing on physical sensations in the moment and coming into the moment and realizing that you're completely worthy. Maybe saying a couple of affirmations to yourself that you're worthy, you're strong, you're loved, you're capable. just focusing on how you speak to yourself, because we can never control what other people are saying around us. So how you speak to yourself is so important.
True. Yeah.
I absolutely, like, I feel like you know more about this information, like the nervous system. I am so intrigued by it. Yeah. Because I find that it's so common when people struggle with eating disorders, like their nervous system isn't regulated. So it's so hard for them to get in touch with their actual emotions and like do all these things because they just don't feel safe. So that's such an awesome tool. I'm so intrigued by it. Okay. So I will talk about the 5 senses one. There's like a longer version, and sometimes just the short version is good enough. So like the long version would be, you know, you're going to pay attention to all 5 senses. So the first thing would be what you see around you. So 5 things that you see around you. And then you do 4 things you touch around you. And then 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and then 1 thing you can taste. So again, you can literally just do like 1 thing you see, 1 thing you touch, 1 thing you hear, 1 thing you smell, 1 thing you taste, because that really brings you to the present moment. You're focused on things around you, like how things feel, all of that. So it really, you can only focus on like the present moment at that point.
There's power in being in the moment. Like, I know that sounds really strange. You're like, why do you guys want us to come into like the present moment so much? It's because there's power in it. There's whatever's happened in the past, like literally the past doesn't exist, the future doesn't exist. What happens right now and how you feel within your own body is what matters the most. So just utilizing that present moment really does help. So what do you think, Jess? I feel like I'm just talking away over here. I'm sorry.
Are you kidding? I'm sitting here thoroughly enjoying myself. This is great. Sometimes I just don't have anything to say because you guys are the expert in this field, and I'm just happy to be here asking questions and participating. So
no, that's
fantastic though. Yeah, I feel like the family is definitely going to be the hardest part for a lot of people. So, but I really liked what you said, Kylie, about recognizing that there's probably something else going on with them. I don't know if you guys saw this. It's also a generational thing, which we've spoken about in the past, but there was this video that I saw recently, and it was like, who told you you had to be 120 pounds? And it was like, my mom. And so it's just a generational thing. And luckily, so many people are starting to recognize that that's not healthy, and that there are so many different definitions of healthy and what health looks like. So I think that that's super important, is just like Sab was saying, and just coming back to knowing what you need and who you are.
Absolutely. And I think one point I really want to make too, that we spoke about a little bit, was if it really does trigger you and it comes down to you're in the point right now where we want to meet like whoever's listening where they're at too. Like if you're at a point in your life where you're still very much, you know, mid disordered thoughts and struggling significantly, and it's really about caloric intake or macros. I mean, what's really helped me in moments like that is to know that like having a calorie surplus for 1 or 2 days of the year is not going to make a difference long term. And really the difference is just knowing that, yes, you obviously are trying to be in a calorie deficit if you're trying to lose weight, but it's really sustainable to be able to meet yourself where you're at and figure out that calorie surplus on a couple of days of the year is really not going to make a difference. I know it feels like it. I have literally been there. I know it feels like it when you're like, holy crap, I just ate that whole pie. Like, how long is it going to take my body to recover from that? But you'd be pretty surprised how malleable the freaking body is. The human body is a beautiful thing, and we're just meant to be able to work through things. So I hope that can resonate with somebody, because I've been in those moments before and just like worried that somehow calories are going to be the death of me on Thanksgiving. So.
Oh yeah. I wanted to touch on that too. Like you bringing that up for people that are struggling, like pretty in deep, because it's so different. Like that's how you see it. That's what really matters to you in that moment. And it's like, it takes over everything. Like you don't even really care that you're with your family. You don't care that it's Thanksgiving. you care about like what you are focused on, and that might be like your body, your, you know, gym routine, what you're eating each day. So it's like, it's so real for you, and those feelings are so valid, but it's so important to be as gentle with yourself as possible. Like if you do, you know, overeat, have a binge, like it's so amazing to like, you know, forgive yourself and be like, I am a human, you know, no human is perfect. I'm able to, you know, do these things. And it's more about like the learning experience. Like, why did this happen? Maybe. So like get curious about it, but also only beating yourself up and like making yourself feel worse is only going to push you down a hole more and more. So it's better to just like forgive yourself and realize that everyone makes mistakes and you are able to move past this. Because it's hard. It's so hard when you're in that. Oh my goodness. I remember too.
It is. Or just laughing about it. I don't know, like to make all of you guys feel better, between a couple of my friends and I, like 3 nights ago, I think we shared like 2 blocks of cream cheese in a fruit dip. So it happens, and you just gotta laugh about it. Like I remember the next morning my friend texted us and she was like, do you guys realize that we did this? We were like, don't think about it like that. That's terrible.
Yeah. And trying to reframe it. I mean, if you, like you're saying, yeah, being in the moment is so hard. But what I regret the most throughout those times in my life is like, I can't even remember like being around my family. And when I started to recover and I was like, wow, like I got to spend time with my grandma who I never get to see. Like I can actually remember being in the moment with her, and we had tacos and I wasn't thinking at all about what I was eating. I was just there with her. But I know being in the past moments of like, I couldn't even care that anyone was around me, and all I was concerned about was the food. So just really trying to, I don't like to tell people ever to think super futuristic. I'm super mindset and in the now. But if there's one thing that you want to try to consider about the future, is that you want to have those memories. Like Jess has memories with her friends from that night. Like they had a great time together, like, and they enjoyed themselves and they were eating food and it felt good. And like we said, that's one day, Jess, that's like not going to affect you super long term, but you get to keep those memories now. And so that's a blessing from that. So working through those thoughts, working on that mindset, like we've been saying, is absolutely super important. I want to flip it around because we've talked a lot about this, but what about the other side for those people who have made comments? Because, you know, as sad as it is that I've been through it, I've also made comments to my own family members. And I think we think that it comes from a place of care. Like we're like, God, I just want to make sure that they like feel healthy or whatever. And it really comes off the wrong way and can trigger people. So we should definitely speak on why we just shouldn't address it at all. And if you're going to talk about food, I don't know, like this is freaking delicious, Mom. Like, thank you so much for taking the time to put your energy and love into this. Or, hey, brother, like, let's sit together and hang out, instead of being like, ooh, are you really sure you want to eat that much? Because it's hard on the other side too, especially for people who don't struggle with any type of disordered eating or an eating disorder, to really consider what their words are doing to somebody. And I think that's a really important concept.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Like if you can, and it may be tough, but to avoid like any comments on like how someone's eating, the way they look, like you literally have no idea like what they are going through. And it can be so triggering. Like I remember people making the smallest comments to me about like, oh, like you're looking so great and you're eating so like good. Like because like I was used to struggle so much with that, and like that made me spiral. Like it doesn't matter if it seems like super positive to you, like anything related can trigger someone, because we just never know. And just honestly having different like topics to talk about instead of like diets. Like I think some people's minds go right to that as well. Like it's a very common thing that,
like,
especially around this time though, with like the new year, new me, like that's what people are thinking about. Like I need to go burn this off and do all these things. And it's like, no, like that is very triggering for people that have been struggling with their eating. And I guess not, some family members might not know if you are with family, but really not drawing attention to the person that's also struggling, like not watching them while they're like eating or staring, or I don't know, because they're already super aware of their own eating. So it's like a super uncomfortable situation. But yeah.
Even for somebody in recovery too, I mean, like I think I'll probably always be in recovery from this, because those thoughts are very invasive and still come back sometimes. But when I started to really implement like eating intuitively into my life and started to find health and recovery in my own life, people started being like shocked that I was eating things. They were like, oh, you're just eating the normal pie right now? And that's triggering too. Like to just be like, and then I'm like, oh my God, you're right. I am. And I'm like, no, it's okay. It's okay. So yeah, extremely just focusing on not even going there. And it's okay, like if you have in the past, if you're listening, and it's not okay, but we can learn from it and move forward, because all the holidays are supposed to be about is enjoying being around your family or your friends, whoever you're with. So
I wanted to go back to that too really quick, if
Yeah.
you don't mind.
Yeah.
No, like the comment about like, say you always ate like quote unquote the healthiest foods, okay? And then people always saw you like that. And then you started introducing these other foods like a pie or something. And then they make those comments, and then you're like, you feel like you're losing an identity pretty much. You feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm losing this person that I always was. And it seemed like people always validated that part of me, and that's what everyone knew me as. So you feel like a part of you is leaving, and that's terrifying, because you're like, well, what does this mean about me? Like, who am I then? So it's like kind of, again, like reflecting on like, you know, who do you really like want in your life? Do you want people to see you as like that person, or like who you truly are?
So how do you validate someone? Because all the comments, especially the ones like, oh my God, you look so good. Like you were saying, they're well-intentioned. And so how do you make those like validating comments without triggering something? Or yeah.
I always try to make comments based not on appearance. And if it is like you like insist, or somebody really looks good, like I don't want to be like, wow, you're just glowing, or you look so happy. Like making it about like how they feel about themselves and can reflect inwards, because just being like, oh, your body, you look so good, it's just like questionable in itself. It's because again, we never know what somebody's going through. So trying to compliment like, oh, I heard you got a new job, like you seem to really enjoy that, like validating them through things that aren't their looks is kind of what I really try to do.
Yeah.
I really like that.
But what about those people that are just like, because I've had family members that are like super health conscious before too, and if they bring it up, and you want to make them feel validated, like if they said something like I'm cutting carbs because I want to look leaner or something like that, and they're like making conversation, how do you like, because my first instinct is to be like, you already look great, you don't need to do a damn thing, but also that's not good.
That's super hard. Being myself, I'd be like, if you would love to talk with me after this dinner, we can talk about how carbs are good for your body.
Right.
Carbs are necessary for you. But I don't know, as a normal person, like not in this. That's a great question. I need to think.
It's hard.
It is. That's a tricky situation, because you're like, okay, they're kind of wanting it. They're wanting that from me. Like they want to be commented on their body, but it's also like, that's what happens whenever people like lose weight, is like that's whenever they get attention. So it's like we constantly keep feeding that, but it's like also we want to make the person feel good, like we truly do. We want to see like, if that's one of their goals, that like that's awesome and they're doing these things, but it's that tricky situation. And again, I feel like the best thing is always like bringing a comment to like who they are internally. But I also am aware that there are people like they will hear those comments and they don't really think twice about it. They're like, oh, thank you. And then they move on. So it's like this tricky situation of like, I don't know, I guess if you really know the person and like, how they're going to take that, that's how I would kind of differentiate the two.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. It really depends on how well you know the person. If you know that they're in a situation or they've struggled in the past with some type of eating disorder or disordered thoughts, also you can kind of validate them and be like, I think it's really, really cool that you care about yourself and you're open to learning about your health or something. I mean, for me, when I lost weight and I was like, oh, people actually give me attention now, it's like, it's sad because it's just like part of our society. It's just true. Like 30 pounds heavier me did not like get as many compliments as like where I am now. And it's like, it's just the sad reality of my experience. And I hope not as many people have experienced that, but I think that that's usually how it goes. I think it would have been good for me personally to like hear something that was like validating about me, like without my external appearance, because in those moments when I was like crazy obsessed with eating healthy and whatnot, and then to just hear validating response, it was actually validating what I was doing, and it was like making it okay. And it might have been really good for me to be like, for somebody to say like, I think what you're doing in school is really great and that you want to help people. And I might be like, oh yeah, that's who I am too. Like that's part of my life too, not just like what I look like and what I eat. So yeah, it really just depends on the person that you know, I guess, and how well you know them. It's a wild time. You said new year, new me, and that's something we want to talk about because let's roll up our sleeves for this one. Like workout plans, nutrition goals, all new year, new me. What the heck? What are your thoughts? What are all of our thoughts on this? I can't even begin to, that gives me anxiety.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Me
I'm
too.
so guilty of this. Oh my gosh, absolutely. I'm like not even to the extent of new year, new me. If I want to start working out again, I will purposefully wait until a Monday. Wednesday to start fresh. Like that's 100% me.
No, it's serious. Like, why freaking Mondays? It's so true. I've done that. I've been like, it's Thursday, but like, why start tomorrow? I'll start Monday.
Or like, oh, I already ate crappy today, so I might as well wait until next week to like finish out the crappy eating.
Oh yeah. I think it always comes back to like, I feel like it's so common for most like humans. Like it's the all or nothing. Like we want to be either perfect or we just like are on the opposite spectrum. I'm like, we're just failing. So again, it's like, okay, well, we start off Monday and everything goes really great and good, then we did it. But if we have one bad day, it's like, oh no, this ruined everything. So like, we must just like throw in the bag and then we'll come back to it again. So I feel like it's just, we are very extreme, but like goals in general are amazing. Like, I feel like that's super helpful for us to like continuously grow and improve and like reach whatever we want within life. But we have to do it from not such an intense place of trying to be perfect. And then if we messed up, because that causes us to have strong emotions about who we are. And again, like we are all just humans. We aren't a machine that's going to be perfect. And just, life is so unexpected too. Like that's the thing. Like, let's say you're trying to be so good with your eating, but then like someone brings in donuts or something to work. And then you're like, oh my God, I really want a donut though. Like, so what does this mean? And then you just eat one and then you think you totally ruined it. But in reality, like you didn't. Like you can continue on with your day, but in your mind, you think that you ruined it. So it's like being gentle with yourself and realizing things won't always go as planned, and that's okay. But like, this is hard. Like I still catch myself in the all or nothing mentality. Like that's really hard to get yourself out of it, but just like noticing it can be really helpful.
Yeah. I hate like diets and restriction at all, but I feel like a really good outline that I give to people is 80-20. And again, I always am like, I just like don't like that, but I think it's a good way to start because there's just no possible way to measure that 80% of your diet is good and 20% is bad. Like, first of all, there's no good or bad, but if it helps you to just like get started with intuitive eating, get started. You don't have to be 100% perfect. You don't start 90-10, whatever it is that works for you, but to start incorporating some of those foods that you can start to come to peace with and working that in. And same goes for working out, for new year, new me too. I mean, I'm 100% guilty and have been in the past, but my mindset was always like, okay, I'm going to start on Monday. So that means that I need to go to the grocery store over the weekend and I need to meal prep and I need to be fully prepared. And I feel like that just puts so much pressure on it too. So it's like, let's say it's Thursday and you have this idea to start Monday, or maybe you really don't have the foods that you really want to try to start incorporating into your diet and you can only go grocery shopping over the weekend. Okay. So that means you're going to meal prep or work on, gathering some food, and you want to really start heavily on Monday to try to balance, keyword balance out your life. cool. So that means I can go for a walk tonight, and then I can like do a solid workout tomorrow. Like you don't have to put, I think putting all of it on one day, being like meal prep, 3 meals a day, not eating anything bad, you got to go to the gym and work out, get good sleep. Like that's just a lot for anybody. Like, sorry, I've been in this freaking like field for years, and there is not one, okay, maybe there's like a couple days, but like very few days do I do every single thing right. Like it's just unattainable. Like life happens, and that's part of that balance. It's like I don't get 8 hours of sleep and drink all my water and eat perfect and get to the gym and connect with my friends and get my work done. Like it's just an unrealistic goal and expectation. It's just do what you can for those days, and don't put everything on yourself. That's when it's like debilitating for me, is just putting that much on myself.
I feel like it just leads to burnout. Like you're like trying to be so good, go. And then it's like, oh my God, this is exhausting. Like I think again with like, I keep relating it back to food stuff, but like, you know, cutting out all of these quote unquote bad foods, and you're trying to eat so good, and then you can only do that for so long. And then that's finally when you like flip the switch, like the pendulum swings, and now you like are out of control, and then you feel like you need to be so perfect again and cut everything out. But then it's just like, no, again, like what you said, balance. Like we need to find that happy place of like, okay, like I can do these things and these things, eat these foods and these foods, like even within the same day, and that is okay. Like,
yeah, exactly. And it doesn't have to happen right away either. I mean, I'm definitely also a fan of like keeping those bad foods or whatever in your house. Like I don't think that you should, because that's another form of restriction, is like, oh, I just won't buy it. Well, then I'm going to be thinking about it for the entire night. Like
you go out of your way to get it. That's so true.
Oh yeah, I'm guilty of that. I've done that so many times in the past. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And you don't have to force. I was like, when I first really started learning about this and getting to it, I was like, okay, you buy the Oreos and you like force yourself to eat 2 every day, which is like the opposite end of the spectrum of bad. Like you don't have to force yourself to eat something to try to like find balance. It's just that like you have it and you can have a couple and then you move on with your day. It's like in college, my last year, when I was like extremely like toxic to myself with orthorexia, I would not keep anything. And I would like, if I saw something on my my roommate's shelf, it would like literally traumatize me and like, oh my God. And I would just think about it. One thing I will say, this might speak about who I am a little bit, or things that I dislike about myself, is you put a couple drinks in me, like you have a wine night with your friends, and that's when I noticed things would get bad for me. Like my like mental barriers would go down and I would just eat anything. That was like, I was like, get it, girl, like eat it all, which is a really crazy concept too. So I was just always petrified to have anything around. Like if we would literally have a wine night or something, like I would just be petrified in general to even like have a couple of glasses of wine with my friends, because it would literally lead to eating something that I wasn't supposed to. So damn, I forgot about this stuff. When I'm like, wow, it's crazy. I remember on the last episode, you were like, it's kind of hard to like remember like being in those moments when you're so far removed from it and you've worked so hard on it. It's like when you go back into that, you're like, oh my goodness, it's traumatizing a little bit.
So what are the things, Sav, that helped you get out of that? Because I feel like we talk a lot about like where we used to be and where we are now, but there's so many people in that transitional period. So if you can remember, like what are some of the, like, did you like start after you were at the goal weight? Did you like, what are all these things? I feel like also a lot of people are like, I need to get skinny and then I'll eat healthy. Like then I can have what I want as soon as I'm skinny.
Yeah. I wish I had someone like Kylee to work with at the time. I went through a shit ton of therapy. But that's exactly what it was. When I like first started, like I was overweight and I just wanted to like feel better. Boom, in comes keto and Whole30 diets. And I was like, cool, I'm going to just starve myself and do this until I get skinny. And then I got to where I wanted to be. And then it became really like an unhealthy cycle for me to just stay there, petrified to eat anything that would make me feel like I used to, really. And then for me, it was really that education on it, which is why I'm always like, I literally throw that into a eating book at anybody I can. I'm like, read this. Like, just freaking read this, because it will change how you think about yourself and your eating. Because what happened to me then was, it was when I moved to California. I was probably pretty like in that cycle for a couple years, even after I graduated, and I like took a year off before I moved to California. When I got to California, there was so much good food around me. And I just kind of, especially with COVID, I was like, just like enjoy yourself. But then I got to the point where I was enjoying myself all the time. Like, I was just like eating everything. And so I did like gain like 15 pounds back. And I was like, okay, how do I find the balance now? And I guess it really just, I think it depends on where people are at. Like, for years, I just like wasn't gonna, it wouldn't really matter. Like, I was in therapy and stuff. It wouldn't really matter what anyone said to me. And you shared about your story, Kylie, that was similar, that you went through like literally an entire program and you still weren't ready for it, I think is what you were talking about. So I just had to get to a point where I was like, okay, it's like time to realize that you can like reach your goals and still have like a happy life and a social life, and enjoy these foods when you want to. I think you have to be ready for it. And a lot of that for me personally came from like the emotional eating aspect. Like, what's actually behind what I'm doing right now, was the biggest piece for me, is working through like, what am I covering up with eating right now?
To bring it back to the new year, new me, what we started to talk about, I feel like that goes so well with it, because like we were talking about before, how it's only a couple days, and how if you like binge eating one night or eating unhealthy one night is not going to make or break your plans for health in the future, but restricting yourself long term will. And so just making sure that the new year, new me mentality doesn't include, I'm going to eat 1,200 calories a day, work out twice, like not sustainable.
We need to change it to like new day, balanced me.
Should. The balance needs to be in there.
Yeah. Through the year, new day, balance me. It's a crazy like slogan in general. You talked about goals there for a second. You brought it up, and I wanted to talk about that because the three of us had talked about it on our intro calls. For me personally, I was sharing that like long-term goals are kind of challenging for me because a lot has changed in my life that I wasn't expecting, in good ways, but I didn't reach those goals because my life kind of took me down a different path, and that's okay. But it was really challenging to look at like my yearly goals and be like, wow, I didn't get any of these things done. And so what I started to recognize was that short-term goals were really good for me. But you guys kind of shared some differences about your goal setting. So I'd love to just like talk about all of our goal setting techniques, because I think it's really good to recognize that different techniques can resonate with different people based on like where you're at in your life.
So honestly, I kind of agree with you. Like, the long-term goals kind of mess with me, because honestly, this also happens though. Like, I will have a long-term goal for like a whole year, and then I feel like I just push it off because I'm like, I have so much time. And then like it reaches to like the last month and I'm like, I haven't even done any of this. So like, what now? So I feel like I like to do like monthly goals. Like, it kind of depends on what your goal is, but mine are pretty like, they're smaller type of goals where I'm like, okay, this is reasonable. Like, I think I can reach this within this month. Versus, because I remember having to do that even in school. Like, they were like, where do you see yourself in 5 years, in 10 years? And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, I've been lost my whole life. You're gonna ask me these things that I don't know. I feel like I'm evolving like every day. Like, I feel like I'm a different human each day. So I'm like, that type of question freaks me out. So I think, short term is definitely my go-to.
Yeah, I like the shorter term ones too. Mine are a little bit different just right now because I'm still in school and I have these obvious, I don't even think of them as goals. They're more like deadlines to me for like graduating and submitting my thesis and my defense and everything. And but I'm definitely a much like shorter goal person because I mean, if you looked at my to-do list right now, and like flip through the weeks of my to-do list, because I like to write it out like at the beginning of each week, there will be stuff from like June on there that I still have not done. And I'm like, ooh, mental note, gotta get it done. Like it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's just on my to-do list for months now. So definitely like them shorter. And you can have like the overall, make like a dream board or something. Like where do you want to see? And it doesn't have to be like these really tangible things. Like do your goals include having a family someday, or spending more time with your siblings, or I don't know, I was gonna say like being happy, but I don't know, I feel like it's not really a good goal. I mean, it's a good goal.
Well, I'm a
but it's hard to measure. Like how do you even measure happiness? Like I don't know.
Totally. And learning what you can define happiness for yourself as is so huge. That's really changed the game for me. Is like, okay,
and taking happiness day by day, and like finding, like maybe you have a goal of like finding one little thing of happiness in each day. And if you had a really shitty day, maybe go look up pictures of a puppy or something like that. Like small little goals like that, instead of like, I'm looking ahead 3 months from now and I want to lose 10 pounds. Like that's not a good goal.
Yeah. And instead of putting a number on things too is like really helpful. Like, how do you want to feel? Screw the scale. Like, like, how do you want to feel? What do you want to feel like? Like, I don't want to, honestly, when I was like in the best shape of my life, I mean, I just told you guys, it was so unhealthy. Like I didn't feel good. It was never good enough. So it's like, how do you truly want to feel? And to be honest, what I look like now isn't even that freaking different from what I looked like then. And I'm significantly happier. So, but I'm a major proponent for like freaking mood boards or dream boards, whatever it is. I'm like literally just like seeing the like type of life you want to create for yourself, and it has nothing to do with like what you look like, is super helpful for me. Even just like on a Pinterest board, I'm just like, oh, that looks happy. Like that makes me feel good. Like I want to welcome that into my life. So
I really like that with the feeling.
Yeah,
definitely. But also like going back to like, what do you value? Because I've noticed with like different people, like certain people will really, they'll really care about their like the health and these types of things. And someone else is going to really care about their career, and someone else is going to really care about their family. Like, I feel like some people just like have goals in different areas, and like knowing that's okay, like whatever really resonates with you and feels right. Again, like the feeling, like what really feels right for you.
Yeah. The benchmarks in terms of health, since that seems to be like everyone's underlying problem, that has been the single most thing that has helped me so much, is going off of ditching the scale. I haven't weighed myself in probably a year because of that. Ditching the scale and just going based off of how I feel. And I think that, I mean, you can definitely do this if you just go to like a regular gym, maybe you weight lift, maybe you run on the treadmill, Peloton, whatever you do. There are ways to benchmark that. And it's so amazing looking back and realizing like, I did not be able to used to do this 45-minute workout, and now I can do an hour workout. And it's so amazing. Like a couple of my friends do Orange Theory. They do a great job with benchmarking. Like they literally have benchmark workouts, and they track like where you were. So if you like tracking it like that, like, oh, my mile used to be 12 minutes and now it's 11 minutes and 30 seconds. Like those are fantastic markers that don't have to do with what size you are or how much you weigh. It's
That's so cool.
better.
I love that.
I like that.
That's a great way to look at it, instead of being like, I want to lose 10 pounds too. It's like, well, look at what I've done in 2 months. Like, look at how much faster my mile has come. Look how much more weight I've been able to lift, or how much more flexible I am in yoga, whatever it is. It's like, that's a really cool way to look at it. Actually, I love that. I love that.
Ditch the scale.
Ditch the scale.
I know some people are fine with it, but I'm literally like, no, it messes with your head so much. Literally, like you'll be feeling awesome and doing all these things, and then you step on the scale and you see this number and you're like, what the heck? No. And then you like freak out from that point. Just get rid of it. It's not helpful.
No, it's been the best thing. Not even thinking about it, not even looking at it.
And there's a major difference.
Like doctors in a while, but I think I'll still be that person that like turns around.
Me too. I do that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, I get metabolic health is important. We want to make sure that you're metabolically healthy, but leave that for the doctor to like tell you and look at and work on, like we said, all these different things, looking at those benchmarks, what makes you feel good. You don't need that freaking skill to tell you that. So basically our last topic here is to kind of just discuss how we can mentally how we can just like stay in this mentality throughout the entire year, not just the holidays. How can we bring this with us? I mean, I feel like everything we've talked about is so applicable, but how can we really utilize everything we've learned and talked about to apply to every single day? Do it all. I'm like, just do it all.
Yeah. Again, I feel like the biggest thing always comes back to like the mindset, like getting your mindset right. Like it's so easy when you're stuck in these things to think negative like right away, which is like very real. Like that's the experience, but we have to realize like by doing the same thing over and over again, like it's not going to get us to where we actually want to be. So we have to start kind of looking at things a little bit differently, you know, changing for things. And even again, like preparing, like I feel like preparing for things can be really helpful. You know, it helps prevent certain anxiety and overwhelm, like about certain foods and everything like that. So that's like the main thing. And if like intuitive eating was your goal, you know, like starting to allow yourself like permission to eat foods, like I'm always like, don't label the foods. Like we know more foods some are more nutritious than others, but like we don't want it to be emotionally like equivalent. Like we don't want to have these strong emotions attached to our food. So I feel like that's the best. And also like having coping skills. Like I feel like creating a list of like coping skills, because it's so different for each person, and like start creating it now, get curious now, because in the moments when maybe you wanted to like use food, if that was your coping mechanism, it's so hard to like come up with ideas when that urge is coming on right now. So having a list prepared, getting curious can be really helpful throughout like your journey.
That's true.
I love that, the coping skills, like really listing out what it is that how you get through things and cope with things actually is a great idea. Being aware of like how you get through things is huge, instead of just kind of like going willy-nilly. I love that.
So what are some examples of some other coping skills that people might find helpful?
Yeah, I first want to mention like just being very real. Like if you struggle with food and food is your coping mechanism, like food is an instant, like instantly you're going to feel relieved in that moment. So we have to always remember like these other coping skills are going to take a little bit more time. You may have to do them a couple of times to see if it really resonates with you, because it's not going to be that instant like relief right away. But I feel like for some, it's spending like quality time with others, having people that can support you. It can be if you feel artistic, like drawing, painting, writing, reading a book. I feel like I want to say like, you know, doing certain activities, but I want it to be like, you know, in a healthy way, like even if it is taking a walk or hanging with pets, taking your pet on a walk, like it's really different for each person. Like I know some people, they really like crocheting. So doing things like that, like whatever, or cooking, that one's a little bit tricky, but some people love cooking, but then they move away from it because of like their relationship with food. But once you can like, you know, you find other ways to go about this, that's a good one as well. It's really like, I feel like I have like the textbook ones where like, you know, they're like, okay, here's some coping skills. And it's like all pretty much the same, like taking a walk, read a book, draw, paint, like those types of ones. I remember I posted something on my Instagram story and to like see some other ideas, because I'm like, what do people do, you know, for their coping skills? Because I feel like it is so different. Like I really love being with animals. Like if I'm around dogs, like I feel like that really calms me down. But again, get curious and try it out a couple of times.
Like, yeah, increase that oxytocin from that animal love. No,
Yes.
I love that. And things like that are just so underrated too. It's like, oh, journal and color. Like I literally have an anxiety coloring book, and I just like color, like I literally color, and it's like, people think of it as childish, but it's like, take those moments to just be by yourself, relax. It really makes a huge difference in my day, in my mood, to just take literally 10 minutes to cope instead of let that anxiety build around something. So
that's a good point. Go back to childhood. Like, what did you like to do in childhood?
Yeah. Seriously.
Like we know that inner child's always with us. Like we need to honor it. Don't push it down anymore. So that's a good point.
I love it. Well, this is kind of sad, but Kylee, it's been such a pleasure talking to you again. Thank you for always being open and honest and vulnerable with your story and everything that you've been through. We appreciate it. I know that our listeners love it and love hearing from you. So next season, we'll have you back again without a doubt. But thank you for being here again. We really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you so
much. We also want to congratulate you on making your own business, going solo. That's such a huge accomplishment. So congratulations on all of that. Anyone listening out there, like reach out to Kylee if you want to. Like that, she's such an amazing person, amazing coach. She's been through it herself, so she has amazing advice. But yeah, you can find her on Instagram and TikTok. We'll drop the handle. It's at Eating with Kindness. And to become a part of our family and community, join us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, everything at And a Diet Soda. Thank you again, Kylee. We'll see you next season for sure.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it so much, and I'm excited for your new season.
Thanks for listening. We hope you were able to give yourself a little love today. You deserve it.
Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and check us out on social media for weekly conversations and attainable challenges for your health.